I remember the exact moment I knew it was over, standing in our empty living room, staring at the bare walls where our wedding photos used to hang. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. My name's Daniel Parker, Staff Sergeant with the 75th Ranger Regiment, 34 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had a marriage worth fighting for. I was wrong. The divorce papers were already signed and filed before I left for my third deployment to Afghanistan. What I didn't expect was coming home early to find another man's clothes in my closet. "They told me you weren't supposed to be back for another month," Emma said, standing in the doorway with her arms crossed. No hello, no welcome home. Just that flat statement, like I'd interrupted her dinner plans instead of returning from combat. I didn't yell, didn't throw things, didn't even ask who he was, though I already knew. Ryan. Her, just a friend from work who'd been texting at all hours for the past year. I simply nodded, dropped my duffel bag on the floor, and walked back, out to my truck. "That's it," she called after me. "Nothing to say?" I paused for just a moment. "The divorce papers are already filed. You'll hear from my lawyer." Then I drove away. For 10 years, I'd given everything to the military and to Emma. We met when I was just a private, fresh out of training. Back then, we lived in a tiny apartment outside Fort Benning, Georgia, scraping by on my meager salary. She worked double shifts as a nurse to help make ends meet while I trained for my first deployment. "We're investing in our future," she'd say, kissing me goodbye at 5 a.m. before her hospital shift. I believed her, believed in us. Those early years were hard, but good. We saved every penny, moved only when the Army told us to move. She followed me to 3 different bases without complaint. When I made Staff Sergeant, we finally bought a small house in Colorado Springs near Fort Carson. Nothing fancy, but it was ours, or so I thought. The trouble started after my second tour. I came back different. Everyone does. The things you do, they change you. I didn't talk about it, couldn't find the words, and honestly didn't want to burden Emma with those images. So I stayed quiet, thinking I was protecting her. My silence became a wall between us. I'd catch her staring at me sometimes, like she was trying to recognize the man she married. I'd try to smile, reassure her I was fine. But we both knew that wasn't true. When she started working longer hours at Memorial Hospital, I told myself it was normal. When her phone would buzz late at night and she'd take it to another room to answer, I convinced myself it was work-related. When she began suggesting I seek therapy for PTSD that I insisted I didn't have, I took it as criticism rather than concern. It was Williams, my platoon sergeant, who finally said something after a training exercise. "Parker, you know your wife's seeing someone, right?" I nearly laid him out right there in the barracks. Would have if Martinez and Jackson hadn't held me back. Williams didn't apologize, just looked at me with something between pity and frustration. "My cousin works at that hospital," he continued once I'd stopped struggling. "Says it's not exactly a secret." That night, I checked Emma's phone while she showered. Hundreds of messages to and from Ryan Garcia, heart emojis, late-night conversations. Plans to meet when I was on overnight training. The digital evidence of a year-long betrayal. I didn't confront her immediately. Instead, I contacted a lawyer the next day, quietly moved my separate savings to a new account, and began making arrangements. 2 weeks later, when I received my deployment orders, I made my decision. I filed the divorce papers, had her served while I was at work, and that night I told her I knew everything. Emma didn't deny it, didn't even seem surprised. "We haven't been a real couple for years, Daniel," she said coldly. "You're never really here, even when you're home." Maybe she was right. Maybe I had checked out first. But I hadn't broken our vows. "I'll be deployed in 2 weeks," I told her. "I've filed for divorce. When I get back, I expect you'll have found somewhere else to live." She laughed then, a sound without humor. "This house is half mine. I'm not going anywhere." I didn't argue. Let the lawyers handle it. The next morning I started sleeping in the spare bedroom. 2 weeks later I shipped out to Afghanistan. My personal life in shambles, but my mind strangely clear. The deployment was supposed to last 9 months. A clean break. By the time I returned, the divorce would be final and we could go our separate ways. Then the ambush happened. 3 months into the deployment, our convoy hit an IED outside Kandahar. 2 men died. I took shrapnel in my left shoulder and leg. Nothing life-threatening, but enough to earn me an early ticket home for surgery and recovery. No one told Emma I was coming back. I specifically asked them not to. In retrospect, maybe I wanted to catch her, to validate my decision, to prove to myself that I wasn't the villain in our story. I took a taxi from the airport to our house, my house, according to the divorce settlement I'd just signed, before leaving Landstuhl Regional Medical Center in Germany. It was Thursday afternoon. Emma's car was in the driveway, even though she should have been at work. So was a black Jeep I didn't recognize. Using my key, I entered silently through the back door. The kitchen counter held empty beer bottles and 2 wine glasses. Men's boots I'd never seen before sat by the door. A leather jacket hung on the chair where I used to sit for breakfast. I heard laughter from upstairs, Emma's distinctive giggle that once made my heart leap. Now it just made my stomach turn. I didn't go upstairs, didn't need to see more. Instead, I waited in the living room, looking at the spaces where our life together had once been documented in photographs. She'd already removed them all. Erased me before I was even gone. When Emma finally came downstairs and saw me sitting there, she froze. I saw fear flash across her face, then defiance. Behind her, a tall man with a sleeve tattoo appeared, then quickly retreated when he saw me. "You're home," she said unnecessarily. "Wounded," I replied, gesturing to my arm in a sling. "Nothing serious, just came to get some things." Relief crossed her face. She thought I was just passing through. "I'll go upstairs while you pack." "Don't bother," I said, standing. "I'm not staying, but you should know. This house is mine now. Your lawyer should have told you. The divorce settlement is signed." The color drained from her face. "What are you talking about? The house was supposed to be sold with me getting half." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Check with your lawyer. You missed the response deadline while you were distracted. Judge ruled yesterday. I hadn't planned it this way. I'd actually been fair in my initial offer, splitting everything down the middle despite the betrayal. But when her lawyer countered by demanding alimony despite her full-time job and her infidelity, something in me hardened. My lawyer advised me to play hardball, and when Emma missed a critical deadline to respond to our revised settlement, the judge ruled in my favor. "You have 30 days to vacate," I told her, heading toward the door. "I'll be staying with Mike. Until then." Mike Delaney had been my best friend since Ranger School. He'd offered his spare room the moment he heard about the divorce. Now, as I drove to his place on the other side of Colorado Springs, I felt numb, not angry, not sad, just empty. His reaction when I showed up at his door earlier than expected, duffel bag in hand and arm in a sling, said everything about our friendship. "Jesus, Parker," he said, pulling me into a careful hug. "When did you get back?" "About 3 hours ago." "And you've already been home. How bad was it?" "About what you'd expect. Ryan's there. Looks like he's been there a while." Mike shook, his head ushering me inside. "Her loss, brother. Her damn loss." I dropped my bag in his spare room and sank onto the bed. The events of the day, hell, the events of the past year, crashed over me like a wave. For the first time since discovering Emma's betrayal, I put my head in my hands and let the tears come. Mike gave me space. When I finally emerged from the room, he handed me a beer and didn't mention my red eyes. "What's the plan?" he asked instead. "Recovery, physical therapy, figure out if I'm staying in or getting out. The Army's offering medical retirement if I want it." "Then Emma," I took a long pull from the beer. "She's got 30 days to get out of the house. After that I haven't decided. Might sell it, too many memories. You hungry? Jana's bringing home pizza when she gets off work." That was Mike. Practical, supportive without being smothering. His wife Jana was the same way, which is why they worked so well together. When she arrived an hour later, she hugged me gently, mindful of my injuries, and didn't ask questions I wasn't ready to. And sir, over pizza we talked about everything except Emma, Mike's job at the local fire department, Jana's promotion at the bank, their plans to start trying for a baby next year, normal life, the kind I thought I'd have by now. That night, lying in Mike's spare bedroom, I scrolled through messages from my lawyer. The divorce was proceeding, smoothly, faster than expected due to Emma's lack of response to court deadlines. The house was legally mine, as was my military pension. She would keep her car, her retirement account, and her personal belongings. Clean break. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Ryan. We need to talk." About Emma. I stared at the screen for a long time. The audacity was almost impressive. I typed back a single word. "No." Then I blocked the number, turned off my phone, and got the first solid night's sleep I'd had in months. The next day, physical therapy began at the base hospital. 2 hours of excruciating work to regain full motion in my shoulder and leg. I'd been through worse, much worse, but pain is still pain. By the time I finished, sweat soaked my shirt and my muscles screamed in protest. As I was leaving, I spotted a familiar face in the waiting room. James Chen, who'd served in my platoon. During my first deployment. We'd lost touch after he was injured and medically discharged 3 years ago. "Parker," he called, eyes widening. "What are you doing back? Thought you were in the sandbox for another 6 months." I gestured to my sling. "Got lucky, I guess." "Lucky's not the word I'd use," he said, standing to shake my good hand. "You free for lunch? I'm just here for my annual checkup." Under the burgers at the base diner, I filled James in on my injury, the ambush, the medevac, the surgeries. He nodded, understanding in a way only another soldier could. "And how's Emma taking your early return?" he asked innocently. I hesitated, then decided there was no point hiding it. "We're divorced, or nearly anyway. Papers were filed before I deployed." James's eyes widened. "Shit, man. I'm sorry, I had no idea. You two always seemed solid." "Yeah, well, things change. She's been seeing someone else, moved him in while I was gone." His expression darkened. "That's messed up. You need anything? Place to stay? Job leads? Got a room at Mike's for now. As for work," I shrugged. "Not sure yet. Army's offering medical retirement." "Take it," James said immediately. "Best decision I ever made. Got my full pension, disability, and now I run my own security consulting business. In fact," he leaned forward, "I could use someone with your experience. The business is growing faster than I can keep up." I hadn't considered civilian employment options yet. My focus had been on recovery and the divorce. But the idea of working with a fellow Ranger, doing something that valued my skills without the deployments, held immediate appeal. "I appreciate that," I said carefully. "Let me think about it." "Of course. Offer stands whenever you're ready." James handed me his business card. "Vanguard Security Solutions. We do everything from corporate security assessments to private protection details. Good money, flexible hours, and no one shoots at you." He said it with a smile, but we both knew the appeal of that last part. After lunch, I headed to the house, my house, knowing Emma would be at work. I needed clothes, personal documents, and time to assess what else was there, what remained of the life we'd built. The black Jeep was gone from the driveway. Inside, the house felt different. Some of my things had been moved to the garage, closets rearranged, new bedding on the master bed. I tried not to think about what had happened there while I was gone. In my home office, I found my important papers miraculously untouched. Birth certificate, military records, property deeds, insurance policies, all still in the fireproof safe, where I'd left them. I gathered these first, along with enough clothes for 2 weeks, and loaded everything into my truck. As I was making a final walkthrough, the front door opened. Emma stood there, purse in hand, clearly surprised to see me. "I thought you'd be at physical therapy all day," she said accusingly, as if I'd intentionally disrupted her schedule. "Finished early, just getting some things." My voice sounded calm, detached. Inside, my heart hammered against my ribs. Emma set her purse down with deliberate movements. "We need to talk about the house, Daniel. You can't just take it. We bought it together." "Actually, I can. And I did. Legally." I moved toward the door, my duffel bag over my good shoulder. "Your lawyer has all the details. You have 29 days to find a new place." She stepped into my path. "After 10 years, I deserve better than this. You were never here, Daniel. Never really present even when you weren't deployed. What did you expect me to do?" For the first time since discovering her betrayal, real anger surged through me. "I expected you to honor your vows. If you were unhappy, you should have said something, filed for divorce, done things the right way, not sneak around behind my back while I was risking my life. I tried talking to you for years. You shut me out after your second tour, wouldn't talk about what happened over there, wouldn't get help, wouldn't let me in. Ryan actually listens to me." I laughed without humor. "Great, I'm happy for you. Both. Enjoy your 29 days here. After that, you're trespassing." As I walked past her toward the door, she grabbed my injured arm. Pain shot through my shoulder, and I jerked away more forcefully than intended. Emma stumbled backward, eyes wide. "Did you just—" "Don't!" I cut her off, voice deadly quiet. "Don't even think about going there. I've never laid a hand on you, and I never would. You know that." She stared at me, and for a moment I saw calculation in her eyes, the realization that she might actually try to accuse me of something so fundamentally against my character felt like a final betrayal, worse somehow than the affair. "We're done here," I said, walking out the door. "Have your lawyer contact mine if you need anything else." Back in my truck, hands shaking with adrenaline and anger, I called my lawyer, Thomas Brennan. "She just implied I pushed her," I told him after explaining the encounter. "I need to protect myself." Thomas's voice was calm, reassuring. "Document everything. Time and date of your visit. That you were retrieving personal items. Any witnesses? Security cameras in the neighborhood. No witnesses. There's a doorbell camera at Mike's neighbor's house that might have caught me leaving earlier. And my physical therapist can confirm I was there this morning. Good. I'll file a motion for a property division order that formally documents your rightful removal of personal effects. And Daniel, don't go back to the house alone again. I'll arrange for a sheriff's deputy to accompany you next time." The precaution felt excessive, but after what had just happened, I wasn't taking chances. "Thanks, Thomas. I appreciate it." That evening, Mike found me on his back deck, staring at the mountains in the distance, nursing a whiskey. "Rough day?" he asked, settling into the chair beside me. Emma suggested I pushed her, like she was setting up for a domestic violence claim. Mike's expression hardened. "That's low, even for her. My lawyer's handling it. But yeah, new, low." I took another sip of whiskey. "James Chen offered me a job today." Mike raised his eyebrows at the abrupt change of subject. "The security company guy, good outfit. Jana's bank uses them. Thinking about taking the medical retirement and going to work for him. Fresh start. You'd be good at it," Mike said, more thoughtfully. "Your skill set, your leadership experience, plus you'd be home every night." Home. The word felt strange now. untethered. I don't know what home is anymore, I admitted. Mike clapped a hand on my good shoulder. It's right here, for as long as you need it, brother, and when you're ready, you'll build something new, something better. The conviction in his voice helped steady me. Mike had never steered me wrong. If he believed I could rebuild, maybe I could. The next week passed in a blur of physical therapy, meetings with my commanding officer about medical, retirement options, and avoiding Emma's increasingly frantic calls and texts. According to my lawyer, she'd finally consulted her own attorney and realized just how badly she'd messed up by missing court deadlines. She's trying to claim she never received proper notice, Thomas explained during our update call. It won't work. We have signed receipts for everything, but she's desperate. What does she want? I asked, although I already knew. Half the house value primarily. She's dropped the alimony demand. I considered this. Despite everything, I'd never intended to leave Emma with nothing. My anger had driven the harder settlement terms, but now, with some distance, I wondered if I was becoming someone I didn't want to be. What if I offered her a settlement? Not half, but something, just to be done with this. Thomas was quiet for a moment. That's generous of you, but let's see what her next formal offer looks like before making any concessions. You're in a strong position legally. 2 days later, Emma's new lawyer sent over a settlement proposal. She wanted 40% of the house value, her car, her retirement account, and a portion of my military pension. The last item was a non-starter. Counter with a cash payment equal to 30% of the house's current market value, I instructed Thomas. She keeps her car and retirement, I keep my pension entirely, and she moves out within 14 days instead of 30. Thomas sounded surprised. You're sure? You don't have to offer anything. I'm sure. I want this over. The next morning, I met James for coffee to discuss the job offer more seriously. He'd prepared an impressive package: competitive salary, benefits, flexible schedule to accommodate my ongoing physical therapy, and a clear path to partnership if things worked out. We've got contracts with 3 banks, 2 tech companies, and the county courthouse, James explained, plus private clients, executives, a couple of minor celebrities. Your background would be perfect for the Executive Protection Division. When would you need me to start? Whenever you're ready. Partial duty would work while you're recovering. We could use your expertise on security assessments right away. It was tempting, very tempting. A clean professional slate to match my soon-to-be clean personal one. Let me finalize my military paperwork, I told him. Should take about 3 weeks, then I'm in. James grinned, extending his hand to shake. Welcome to the team, Parker. On my way back to Mike's, I drove past what used to be my house. The black Jeep was in the driveway again. Ryan had apparently moved in fully now that I was aware of their relationship. The sight didn't hurt as much as I'd expected. My phone rang. Thomas. They've accepted your offer, he said without preamble. 30% cash value, 14-day move-out, you keep the pension. She's signing the paperwork today. Relief washed over me. That's great news. There's more, Thomas continued. She's requested a brief meeting, just you, her, and the lawyers. Says there are things she wants to say to you directly before it's finalized. My gut tightened. Is that necessary? Legally? No, but it might help with closure. Your call entirely. I thought about it. Part of me wanted nothing more than to never see Emma again. But another part, the part that had loved her for 10 years, needed some kind of ending. A period at the end of our sentence, not just a trailing ellipsis. Fine, set it up. The meeting was scheduled for the following afternoon at Thomas's office downtown. I arrived early, dressed in civilian clothes that still felt strange after months in uniform. My shoulder ached less now, and I'd graduated from the sling to simple physical therapy exercises. Emma arrived with her lawyer, a sharp-looking woman in her 50s. My soon-to-be ex-wife looked smaller somehow, less certain than I'd ever seen her. The confident nurse, who used to command hospital floors, was nowhere in evidence. After brief, awkward introductions, the lawyers stepped out to give us privacy, though Thomas made it clear he'd be just outside the door. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The conference room felt too large and too small simultaneously. Finally, Emma broke the silence. "You're looking better. The shoulder." "Getting there," I replied stiffly. "You wanted to talk." She nodded, eyes downcast. "I wanted to say I'm sorry, not just for Ryan, but for how I handled everything. You deserved better." It wasn't what I'd expected. An apology, yes, but there was a genuineness to it I hadn't anticipated. Why him? The question escaped before I could stop it. Why not just end things with me first? Emma sighed heavily. "I was a coward. After your second tour, when you came back so distant, I tried to reach you. For months I tried. But it was like living with a ghost." She looked up, meeting my eyes directly. "Ryan was there when I felt most alone. It just happened." "Things don't just happen, Emma. You made choices." "I know," she said quietly. "So did you." The accusation stung because there was truth in it. I had withdrawn after that second tour, had built walls instead of bridges, had failed to let my wife help me carry the weight of what I'd experienced. "We both made mistakes," I conceded, "but only one of us broke our vows." Emma nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. "I know, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life." She wiped her face. "For what it's worth, Ryan's gone, left 3 days ago, said he couldn't handle the drama. Turns out he's not great when things get complicated." I wasn't surprised. Men who help married women cheat rarely stick around when consequences arrive. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and meant it. Not because I wanted Emma to be with Ryan, but because I'd never wished her pain, even after everything. "What about you?" "Oh," she asked. "What comes next?" "Medical retirement, new job with a security firm, fresh start." Something like pride flickered across her face. "You'll be good at that." The conversation lapsed into silence again, but it was less tense now. We'd said what needed saying. Not everything, that would take more time and distance than either of us had right now. But enough. "I'll be out of the house by next Friday," Emma said finally. "Is there anything specific you want me to leave?" I thought about the life we'd built, the furniture we'd chosen together, the mementos of 10 years. None of it seemed important anymore. Just the filing cabinet in the office. Everything else, take what matters to you. I hesitated, then added, "The rest I'll probably donate. I'm thinking of selling the house." She looked surprised. "Where will you go?" "Not sure yet. Mike's offered his place as long as I need it. Might look for an apartment downtown, closer to the new job." I stood, signaling the end of our conversation. "Thank you for agreeing to the settlement terms." Emma stood as well, smoothing her skirt with nervous hands. "It's more than fair, considering everything." She seemed to be wrestling with whether to say more, then finally stepped toward me, hand extended formally. "Good luck, Daniel. I mean that." I shook her hand, this woman I'd once promised to love forever. "You too, Emma." As I watched her walk out, I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness exactly, that would take time, but the first loosening of the knot that had tightened in my chest since finding those text messages all those months ago. The beginning of whatever came next. Outside Thomas's office, the Colorado. Sun shone brightly on fresh snow, turning the world into a glittering display of possibilities. I took a deep breath of crisp mountain air. For the first time since returning home, I felt truly present, alive. My phone buzzed. A text from James. "Office space ready whenever you are, partner." Partner. The word resonated in a way rank, and titles never had. Not a sergeant, not a husband, but a partner, equal, valued for my skills and judgment. I texted back, starting Monday. Then I called Mike. It's done, I told him when he answered. Settlement signed. Divorce final by the end of the month. Congrats, brother. You coming home to celebrate? Home. There was that word again. But this time it didn't feel so untethered. On my way, I replied. And Mike, I'm taking that job with James, starting Monday. About damn time, Mike laughed. Jana's making her famous lasagna tonight. Perfect timing. As I drove toward Mike's house, my temporary home, I realized that the emptiness I'd felt upon first returning had begun to fill with something new. Not a replacement for what was lost, but something different, something mine. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. I still had physical recovery to complete, trauma to process, a new career to build. But for the first time in longer than I could remember, the future looked like a horizon to move toward, rather than a cliff to avoid. Emma and I had failed each other in different ways. The marriage we'd built had collapsed under the weight of separation, silence and betrayal. But its end wasn't my end, just a new beginning. And as I pulled into Mike's driveway, seeing the porch light on and knowing friends waited inside, I realized that perhaps home wasn't a place at all. It was the people who stood by you when everything else fell apart, the ones who offered shelter without judgment, support without conditions. The divorce papers I'd filed had been just the first step of a journey I hadn't planned, but now embraced. Whatever came next, I wouldn't face it alone. The first week at Mike's place passed in a haze of physical therapy appointments and lengthy calls with military personnel officers. My shoulder improved enough that I could sleep without waking in pain, though the doctors warned full recovery would take months, not weeks. What surprised me most wasn't the physical discomfort, but the strange sense of displacement, like I was watching someone else's life unfold through a foggy window. "You're too quiet," Mike said one evening as we grilled steaks on his back deck. "What's going on in that head of yours?" I flipped a steak, watching the flames leap beneath the grate, just figuring out next steps. Mike shot me a skeptical look. "You've got the retirement paperwork started, James's job lined up, and the divorce nearly finalized. Seems like the next steps are pretty clear." "It's not the logistics," I admitted. "It's everything else." Mike nodded, understanding without needing elaboration. He'd been through his own struggles after his time in the Marines, though. He'd been fortunate enough to have Jana by his side throughout. "You know what helped me?" he asked, closing the grill lid. "Finding purpose beyond the uniform. The fire department gave me that structure, that brotherhood I missed. James's outfit will do the same for you." Maybe. I wasn't convinced. The military had been my identity for so long that civilian life felt like a foreign country without a map. "Trust me on this," Mike insisted. "You're Daniel Parker first, Staff Sergeant second, always have been. The Army didn't make you who you are. It just gave you a place to be it for a while." His words stayed with me that night as I lay awake, staring at the ceiling of his guest room. Who was I without my uniform, my rank, my unit? Without Emma? The questions circled like vultures, waiting for weakness. The next morning, my commanding officer called with news that would force those questions into sharper focus. "The medical board results are in," Colonel Reynolds said without preamble. "You've been approved for full medical retirement, effective next month. Congratulations, Parker." Despite anticipating this outcome, hearing it confirmed sent a jolt through me. 15 years of service ended with a phone call. "Thank you, sir. What's the timeline look like?" "Final paperwork should arrive by Friday. You'll need to clear post next week. Official retirement ceremony would typically be scheduled for the end of the month, but given your circumstances, we can expedite or handle it quietly if you prefer." The thought of standing at attention while platitudes were offered about my service felt hollow, especially with my personal life in shambles. Quietly would be appreciated, sir. Understood. Reynolds paused. For what it's worth, Parker, you've been an exemplary soldier. The regiment is losing one of its best. Thank you, sir. The words felt inadequate. One more thing. Sergeant Williams was asking about you, said he has some information you might want. Should I have him contact you directly? Williams, the platoon sergeant who'd first told me about Emma's affair. Yes, sir. That would be fine. After hanging up, I sat on the edge of Mike's guest bed, the reality of my situation finally sinking in. Medical retirement at 34. Divorced, starting over completely. The weight of it pressed against my chest until I forced myself to stand, to move, to take action rather than drown in contemplation. I drove to Fort Carson with a new sense of purpose. If this chapter of my life was ending, I needed to close it properly. The familiar rhythms of the base, the checkpoints, the salutes, the precise organization of buildings and personnel felt like a world I already didn't belong to anymore. At the personnel office, I collected the thick packet of retirement paperwork, health insurance forms, pension documentation, VA benefit applications, out-processing checklists. The administrative specialist, a young corporal who couldn't have been more than 22, handed everything over with practiced efficiency. "Congratulations on your retirement, Staff Sergeant," she said with a bright smile. "Exciting times ahead." I nodded, not bothering to correct her assumption that this was a joyful transition. "Thank you, Corporal." As I was leaving the building, a familiar voice called out, "Parker, hold up!" Williams jogged across the parking lot toward me, his rangerfinder's frame still imposing, despite being several years my senior. We clasped hands in the way of men who'd shared dangerous spaces. "Heard you're making it official," he said, nodding, at the packet under my arm. "News travels fast. Always does." Williams glanced around, then jerked his head toward his truck. "Got a minute? There's something you should know." Curious, I followed him to the far end of the parking lot where we could speak privately. Williams leaned against his truck, arms crossed. "Your ex been in touch with anyone from the unit?" The question caught me off guard. "Not that I know of. Why?" "She reached out to Martinez's wife last week. Apparently, they've stayed friendly. Through the spouse's group. She's been telling people you threatened her, that she's afraid of what you might do." Cold anger swept through me. "That's a lie." "I know that," Williams said quickly. "Everyone who knows you knows that. But she's building a narrative, Parker, trying to salvage her reputation by destroying yours. I'd experienced enough combat to recognize the sensation that followed, the heightened awareness, the calculated calm that precedes necessary action. Thanks for the heads up." Williams studied my face. "What are you going to do?" "Handle it." I kept my voice neutral, but something in my expression made Williams nod appreciatively. "Martinez's wife recorded their phone conversation. Emma didn't know. Sarah thought something seemed off about the whole thing, so she hit record. Smart woman." This was unexpected and potentially crucial. "She still have it?" "Better than that." Williams pulled out his phone, tapped a few times and handed it to me. "Sarah sent it to me this morning. Thought you might need it." I pressed play, and Emma's voice filled the space between us. "Just don't feel safe with him knowing where I am, Sarah. You've seen how he gets when he's angry. After everything in Afghanistan, he's not the same person." Sarah Martinez's voice responded, skepticism evident. "Emma, I've known Daniel for years. He's the calmest guy in the unit, even under pressure. That's what everyone thinks. You don't see him at home." Emma's voice took on a practiced tremor. "The other day, when he came to get his things, he grabbed me hard enough to leave bruises." My hand tightened around the phone. Another lie. "Really?" Sarah sounded doubtful. Because I saw him at the commissary yesterday, and he mentioned he's staying at Mike's place, specifically to give you space. That doesn't sound like someone trying to intimidate you." Emma's voice hardened slightly. "You don't understand. It's complicated." Seems pretty straightforward to me," Sarah countered. "You cheated, got caught, and now you're trying to paint Daniel as the bad guy. Is that about right?" The recording ended there. I handed the phone back to Williams, a strange mixture of gratitude and disgust churning in my stomach. "Sarah's a good friend," I said quietly. "She's loyal to the people who deserve it," Williams agreed. "Unlike some. Can you send me that recording?" "Already did. Came through while we were listening." Williams straightened up, his expression serious. "Watch your back, Parker. A desperate person is dangerous, and your ex seems pretty desperate." I nodded, already considering my next move. "I appreciate this, Williams, more than I can say." "We take care of our own," he replied simply, "even after the uniform comes off." As I drove back to Mike's place, I called Thomas. "My ex-wife is telling people I threatened her," I said after explaining the recording. "Building a case for a restraining order, maybe, or trying to damage my reputation." Thomas listened carefully, then asked, "Do you have any communications from her that might suggest this is retaliatory?" I thought about the dozens of texts and voicemails Emma had left since learning about the divorce settlement. Increasingly frantic messages alternating between guilt trips, reconciliation attempts, and subtle threats. "Yes, plenty. Send me everything," the recording from Mrs. Martinez. "All texts, voicemails, emails. I'll file for a preemptive protective order with a non-disparagement clause. If she's trying to damage your reputation with false accusations, we can shut that down quickly." By the time I reached Mike's house, a strange calm had settled over me. Emma's attempts to paint me as a threat revealed more about her character than mine. The ties that had bound us, love, loyalty, shared history, had dissolved completely, leaving only legal entanglements that would soon be resolved. As I walked through Mike's front door, my phone rang again. James Chen. "Parker, you busy tomorrow morning? Got a potential contract I could use your input on." "I'm free. What kind of contract?" "Executive protection for a tech CEO. Guys received some concerning messages recently. Nothing overtly threatening, but specific enough to warrant security. Thought it might be a good first assignment for you to shadow, see our operation in action." The opportunity to focus on something beyond my personal situation was exactly what I needed. "I'm in. What time?" 0800 at the office. Bring your A-game and a decent suit if you've got one. This client pays premium rates. After hanging up, I realized I didn't actually own a suit appropriate for business meetings. My wardrobe consisted primarily of uniforms, PT clothes, and casual weekend wear. The sudden need to present myself as a security professional rather than a soldier highlighted yet another aspect of civilian transition I hadn't fully considered. "Problem?" Mike asked, noting my expression as he walked in from the kitchen. "Need a suit for a meeting tomorrow? Don't own one." Mike grinned. "Men's Warehouse is open until 9. Jana's brother is the manager. I'll call ahead, get you the friends and family discount." 2 hours later, I stood in front of a fitting room mirror as a tailor marked quick alterations on a charcoal grey suit that fit better than I'd expected. Mike lounged in a chair nearby, scrolling through his phone. "You clean up nice," he commented without looking up. "Very executive protection." The stranger in the mirror looked more put together than I felt, like I was playing dress-up in someone else's life. But there was also something undeniably satisfying about the transformation. The suit created a visual break from my military past, a tangible step toward whatever came next. "This works," I told the tailor. "Can you have the alterations done?" By tomorrow morning? For Mike's family, absolutely. We'll have it ready by 7 a.m. On the drive back, Mike broke a comfortable silence. Jana's parents are coming for dinner Saturday. Her mum's making her famous pot roast. You should join us. The casual invitation caught me off guard. In the weeks since moving in with Mike, I'd been careful not to impose too much, often making myself scarce during family gatherings. You sure? Don't want to intrude on family time? Mike shot me an exasperated look. Your family, you idiot. Have been since Ranger school. Besides, Jana's dad was Army too. He'll love trading war stories with you. The simple acceptance in his words loosened something tight in my chest. In that case, I never turned down a good pot roast. The next morning, I arrived at Vanguard Security Solutions office 15 minutes early, freshly shaved and wearing my new suit. The downtown office occupied the 10th floor of a sleek glass building, professional without being ostentatious. James met me in the lobby, his usual casual demeanor replaced by a sharper, more focused presence. "Ready for this?" he asked, leading me toward a conference room. "Born ready," I replied, falling into the easy confidence that had served me well in the military. "Brief me on the client." Alexander Mercer, CEO of Quantum Core Technologies. They develop encryption software for government and corporate clients. Mercer recently testified before Congress about data security concerns with a Chinese competitor. Since then, he's received several messages suggesting someone's watching his family. Nothing explicitly threatening, but specific enough to be concerning. Family situation? Wife, 2 kids, 13 and 10. They live in the Broadmoor area. Private. School for the children. Wife is a neurosurgeon at Memorial. I absorbed the information, already forming potential security protocols in my mind. Current measures? Standard home security system. Private school has decent protocols. Wife's hospital has good security. But their personal movements are predictable and exposed. That's where we come in. We entered the conference room to find a lean man in his 40s wearing an expensive suit and a perpetual frown. He stood as we entered, extending his hand. "James, thank you for coming on short notice." "Alexander, this is Daniel Parker, our Executive Protection Specialist, former Army Ranger, extensive combat and security experience. He'll be assessing your situation and helping design your protection protocols." Mercer's eyes assessed me with the quick calculation of someone used to making snap judgments about people. Whatever he saw apparently satisfied him because he nodded and gestured for us to sit. "I'll be direct," Mercer began. "I don't want armed guards following my children to soccer practice. I need protection that doesn't disrupt our lives or frighten my family. Is that possible?" The question was directed at me, not James. A test. "Yes," I answered confidently. "The best security is invisible until needed. We can design protocols that blend into your existing routines while eliminating vulnerabilities. Your family doesn't need to feel like they're living in a fortress, but they do need to adopt certain practices, such as varied routes to common destinations, regular check-ins, awareness training, certain technological safeguards. We create layers of protection, most of which operate in the background." Mercer leaned back, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. "That's reassuring. The other firm I consulted suggested armed personnel at all times." "Sometimes that's necessary," I acknowledged, "but broadcasting your security often just makes you a more interesting target. My approach is different." From there, the meeting proceeded into specific concerns, threats, and family routines. I asked pointed questions about the children's activities, the wife's hospital schedule, Mercer's travel plans. With each answer, a comprehensive security assessment took shape in my mind. The same strategic thinking I'd applied to protect my men in combat zones now redirected to civilian protection. After an hour, I presented an outline of recommended measures, a tiered approach that could be adjusted based on threat levels. Mercer listened intently, occasionally asking incisive questions that revealed a sharp intelligence beneath his corporate exterior. When the meeting concluded, Mercer stood and shook my hand firmly. "I'm impressed, Mr. Parker. You've addressed concerns I hadn't even voiced yet." "That's my job," I replied simply. "Well, you do it well. James, I'd like to move forward with Mr. Parker as our primary contact." James nodded, not bothering to hide his satisfaction. "We'll have the full assessment and implementation plan to you by Monday." After Mercer left, James clapped me on the shoulder. "My good one," I noted with appreciation. "That," he said with a broad smile, "was a master class in client reassurance. You've still got it, Parker." "Got what?" "That quiet authority. People trust you instinctively. Can't teach that." The compliment felt good, unexpected but welcome. Just applied the principles of good field leadership. Assess threats, develop countermeasures, communicate clearly. Whatever you call it, it works. Mercer's one of the biggest potential clients we've pursued. Having him on board opens doors to his entire tech community. James checked his watch. "You free for the rest of the day? I could use your help with the detailed assessment." I thought about my nearly empty calendar. Physical therapy, not until tomorrow. No pressing divorce matters requiring attention. "I'm all yours." We spent the next 6 hours in James's office, breaking down every aspect of the Mercer family's security needs. The work absorbed me completely, engaging the analytical skills I'd honed through years of military planning. By late afternoon, we had developed a comprehensive protection strategy that balanced security with minimal disruption. "Oh, this is solid work," James said, reviewing our final draft. "Better than solid, it's exceptional." He leaned back in his chair, studying me. "You know, when I offered you this job, I was thinking you'd need time to adjust to civilian security. Work. I was wrong. You're already there." "The principles translate," I said with a shrug. "Different context, same fundamentals." "More than that," James insisted. "You have instincts for this. The way you factored in the children's emotional security, not just physical, that's next-level thinking." I hadn't consciously approached it that way, but he was right. Throughout our planning, I'd considered how security measures would impact the children's sense of normalcy and freedom. Perhaps because I understood all too well how quickly safety could become isolation. "When can you start officially?" James asked. "I know you mentioned 3 weeks, but after today's performance, I'm hoping you might reconsider." The question gave me pause. My retirement paperwork was in process, but not yet complete. The divorce would be final in another week, according to Thomas's latest update. Emma had until next Friday to vacate the house. Everything was in motion, but nothing was quite finished. Yet sitting in this office, doing work that mattered, using skills I'd spent years developing, it felt right in a way nothing had since returning home. "I can start part-time next week," I offered. 3 days here, 2 days for military out-processing and physical therapy, full-time the week after. James grinned. "Done. I'll have HR prepare your paperwork." He stood, extending his hand. "Welcome to Vanguard, Parker." Officially. As we shook hands, my phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. "Court just approved our protective order with non-disparagement clause. Emma has been formally served. Call me when you can." 2 pieces of my new life clicking into place simultaneously. I felt something I hadn't experienced in months, perhaps longer, a sense of forward momentum, purpose. "Thanks, James," I said, meaning it deeply, "for everything." "Thank me by making us look good with Mercer," he replied lightly, but his eyes conveyed understanding. He knew what this opportunity meant, beyond just employment. Driving back to Mike's place, I called Thomas for details about the court order. "It's comprehensive," my lawyer explained. She cannot make any statements, written or verbal, suggesting you've been threatening, abusive, or dangerous in any way. Violations carry contempt of court penalties, and the recording helped. Significantly, the judge was not impressed by her attempt to create a false narrative. Combined with the text messages where she alternately begged you to reconsider and threatened to make you pay, it painted a clear picture of retaliation. I felt relief rather than satisfaction. Any other developments on the divorce? Everything's proceeding as agreed. House is officially yours. She has until next Friday to vacate. Settlement payment will be transferred upon confirmation of vacancy. And then it's done. And then it's done, Thomas confirmed. Divorce decree should be issued by the end of next week. After hanging up, I pulled into Mike's driveway to find his wife Jana unloading groceries from her car. I immediately moved to help, taking the heavier bags. Such a gentleman, she teased, relinquishing the bags gladly. How was the big meeting? News traveled fast between Mike and Jana. Good, really good, actually. I'm starting part-time next week. Jana's face lit up. That's wonderful. We should celebrate. I'm making fajitas tonight, your favorite. Miss followed her into the kitchen, setting the bags on the counter. You don't have to go to any trouble. It's no trouble, she interrupted firmly. This is a big step, Daniel. Worth celebrating. And Bashir, as we unpacked groceries together, I found myself telling Jana about the Mercer contract, the security planning, the unexpected satisfaction of applying my military skills to civilian protection. She listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions about the work itself, rather than focusing on what it meant for my transition, a subtlety I appreciated deeply. You know, she said as she chopped bell peppers, when Mike left the Marines, he struggled with the same thing, finding purpose beyond the uniform. The fire department helped, but what really made the difference was realizing his value wasn't tied to his service. Mike mentioned something similar. Jana smiled. He would. We talked about it a lot back then. She paused her chopping, looking at me directly. The traits that made you good at your military job, intelligence, strategic thinking, calm, under pressure, leadership, those are intrinsic to who you are, Daniel. The uniform was just one expression of those qualities. The simple truth of her words resonated deeply. I'm starting to understand that. Good, she resumed chopping. Now make yourself useful and grill these peppers. That evening, as Mike, Jana, and I ate fajitas and discussed the Mercer contract in more detail, I felt a growing certainty that had been absent since my return. The path forward wasn't clear of obstacles. Physical recovery, finalized divorce, new career challenges all lay ahead, but for the first time, I could envision navigating them successfully. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, then decided to check, wary of another message from Emma, despite the court order. Instead, I found a brief note from Alexander Mercer. James shared your preliminary security assessment. Impressive work. Looking forward to implementing your recommendations. Thank you for taking our concerns seriously. Mike, reading over my shoulder, raised his eyebrows. The CEO texted you directly? That's a good sign. Very good, Jana agreed. Means he trusts you already. Trust. The word lingered as we finished dinner and moved to the back deck with beers in hand. In the military, trust was everything, the foundation upon which all operations were built. I'd lost trust in Emma, and in turn, a fundamental piece of my personal foundation had crumbled. But here, watching the sunset with friends who'd stepped up without hesitation, considering a text from a client who valued my expertise after just one meeting, I realized I was building new foundations. Different, but no less solid. Mike interrupted. My thoughts. You've got that look again, deep in your head. I smiled slightly. Just thinking about trust, how you rebuild it after it's broken. And one relationship at a time, Jana said softly. One promise kept at a time. Mike nodded in agreement. And you start with trusting yourself first. As darkness settled over the mountains, I considered their words. Self-trust had been damaged. 2. Doubt in my judgment after missing the signs of Emma's betrayal. Uncertainty about my path forward after the injury ended my military career. But today's success with Mercer, the court's validation of my character through the protective order, even the simple act of helping with dinner, each small victory rebuilt that essential faith in my own capabilities. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Physical therapy for my shoulder, paperwork for military retirement, preparations for starting at Vanguard. But for the first time since returning to find another man's possessions in my home, I felt ready to face whatever came next. Not because circumstances had improved dramatically, but because I had reconnected with the core strengths that defined me beyond any role or relationship. The real revelation wasn't about Emma's betrayal or the divorce, or even the new job opportunity. It was simpler and more profound. I was still myself, wounded but whole, changed but intact, ready to build something new from the solid foundation of who I had always been. Monday morning arrived with a clarity I hadn't experienced in months. I woke before my alarm, completed my physical therapy exercises with focused determination, and dressed in my new suit with deliberate care. The face in Mike's guest bathroom mirror looked different somehow, more present, more purposeful. This was day one of whatever came next. Looking sharp, Mike commented as I entered the kitchen. He sat at the counter in his fire department uniform, coffee mug in hand. First day jitters? I poured myself coffee, considering the question. Not jitters exactly, just ready. Mike nodded, understanding the weight behind my simple answer. James is lucky to have you. We'll see if you still think that after. I've worked with actual clients. I checked my watch, still 45 minutes before I needed to leave. Any word from the realtor? After deciding to sell the house, I'd reached out to a real estate agent Mike recommended. The market in Colorado Springs was strong, especially for well-maintained homes in established neighborhoods. She called last night while you were in the shower. Said she can meet you at the house on Wednesday to discuss listing details. Perfect timing. According to Thomas, Emma would be completely moved out by Friday. The sooner I could list the property, the sooner that chapter would be fully closed. Mike hesitated, turning his coffee mug slowly. You sure you want to sell? Might be good to have a home base of your own, especially with the new job. I'd considered keeping the house, but the thought of living there again felt wrong. Too many memories. Too much history in every room. I'm sure. Need a fresh start. Fair enough. Mike glanced at his watch and stood. I'd better head out. 24-hour shift today. He clapped me on the shoulder. Knock 'em dead, corporate. Security man. After Mike left, I finished my coffee in the quiet kitchen, mentally preparing for the day ahead. My phone buzzed with a text from James. Office code is 3817. See you at 8. Team excited to meet you. The simple message reinforced the reality of my new direction. This wasn't just a job opportunity. It was an entirely new professional identity. Staff Sergeant Parker was becoming Daniel Parker, security consultant. The transition felt simultaneously natural and surreal. I arrived at Vanguard's office building 15 minutes early, navigating the downtown morning traffic with time to spare. The security guard in the lobby checked my ID, made a quick call upstairs, then handed me a temporary access badge. 10th floor, sir. Congratulations on the new position. The casual acknowledgement caught me off guard. Thank you. Former military myself, the guard added with a knowing nod. Always good to see brothers land on their feet. The brief exchange followed me into the elevator, a small reminder that I wasn't alone in this transition. Thousands of veterans made this journey every year, exchanging uniforms for business attire, military protocols for corporate procedures. The commonality was comforting. James met me as the elevator doors opened, extending his hand. Right on time. Let me introduce you to the team before our morning briefing. The Vanguard office was smaller than I'd expected. About 20 desks arranged in an open floor plan, with glass-walled conference rooms along the perimeter. A dozen people worked at computers or talked in small groups, creating a focused but relaxed atmosphere. "Everyone, can I have your attention?" James called. The room quieted immediately. "This is Daniel Parker, joining our Executive Protection Division starting today. Former Army Ranger, combat veteran, and the guy who just landed us the Mercer contract." Nods and murmurs of approval rippled through the room. A few people approached to introduce themselves. Sophia, the operations coordinator. Marcus, the technical security specialist. Vanessa, another protection specialist who'd transitioned from the Secret Service 4 years ago. "Welcome aboard," Vanessa said as we shook hands. "James hasn't stopped talking about your assessment of the Mercer situation. Looking forward to working together." The easy acceptance was disconcerting after months of isolation. "Appreciate that, still getting my bearings in the civilian sector. You'll adapt faster than you think," she said with a knowing smile. "The mission's different, but the principles are the same. Identify threats, develop countermeasures, execute with precision." Her summary echoed my own thoughts from the Mercer meeting, reinforcing my growing confidence that this transition made sense. "Exactly." James led me to a small office with the nameplate already mounted on the door. "Daniel Parker, Executive Protection Specialist." Inside, a desk, computer, and basic office supplies awaited. Nothing fancy, but distinctly mine. "It's not much," James said, "but it's yours. It set up your email and system access. Password details are in the envelope on your desk." I ran my hand along the desk's edge, oddly moved by this simple professional space. "It's perfect. Team meeting in 15 minutes in the main conference room. We'll be going over the week's assignments, including finalizing the Mercer protection plan." James paused at the door. "Make yourself at home, Parker. You belong here." Alone in my new office, I took a moment to absorb the significance of this step. For 15 years, my professional identity had been defined by rank, unit, and mission. Now I was building something different, but drawing on those same core strengths. It felt right in a way I hadn't anticipated. The morning meeting introduced me to the full scope of Vanguard's operations: corporate security assessments, executive protection details, cybersecurity consulting, and specialized training programs. James assigned me primary responsibility for the Mercer account, with Vanessa as backup when family members needed simultaneous coverage. "We'll meet with the entire Mercer family tomorrow," James explained. "Daniel, I want you to lead that conversation. Establish rapport with everyone. Vanessa will handle the technical walkthrough of their home and vehicles." The trust implicit in that assignment wasn't lost on me. James was placing a major client in my hands less than a week after our initial meeting. "Understood. I'll prepare a family-friendly presentation of our security protocols." After the meeting, I spent the morning finalizing the Mercer protection plan, incorporating additional insights from Vanessa's experience with high-profile families. The work absorbed me completely, engaging the same strategic thinking I'd applied countless times in military operations, but now directed towards civilian protection. Around noon, Sophia knocked on my open door. "We're ordering lunch from Carlitos. Want in?" "Definitely. What's good there?" "Everything, but their Cuban sandwich is legendary." "Sold." The casual interaction, so normal in any workplace, struck me as significant. For months, my social circle had contracted to just Mike and Jana, with occasional contact with military personnel during medical appointments. This simple lunch order represented re-entry into regular professional life. As I returned to the Mercer plans, my phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. Emma confirmed she'll be completely moved out by Thursday evening. Sheriff's deputy will meet us at the house Friday morning to formally transfer possession. Another piece falling into place. I texted back a brief acknowledgement, then refocused on work. The remaining details of my divorce seemed less pressing now, overshadowed by the new challenges ahead. At 3 o'clock, James called me into his office for a review of the Mercer plan. He studied my detailed recommendation, nodding occasionally. As he read, "This is thorough," he said finally. "I especially like how you've integrated digital security with physical protection. Having Marcus scan their devices for spyware while we implement the home security upgrades is smart. Digital and physical security can't be separated anymore," I explained. "Most physical breaches start with digital reconnaissance." "Exactly right." James closed the file. "There's something else I wanted to discuss. The Petersons, a client we've been pursuing for months, suddenly called this morning wanting to meet. Apparently, Alexander Mercer gave them a glowing recommendation. This was unexpected. We haven't even implemented his security plan yet. Seems your initial assessment was enough to impress him." James leaned forward. "I'd like you to join me for that meeting tomorrow afternoon after we see the Mercers." "Of course." The vote of confidence from both James and Mercer bolstered my growing sense that this career shift wasn't just viable, but potentially more fulfilling than I'd anticipated. The rest of the day passed quickly as I familiarized myself with Vanguard's procedures, client portfolio, and security approaches. By 5:30, when most of the staff began heading out, I realized I'd gone the entire day without thinking about Emma, the divorce, or my military transition, my focus completely absorbed by the new challenges before me. As I gathered my things to leave, Vanessa appeared in my doorway. "A few of us are grabbing drinks at Callahan's down the street. Care to join? Unofficial team tradition for new hires." The invitation triggered a moment of hesitation. Since returning from deployment, I'd avoided social gatherings, preferring the quiet familiarity of Mike's house. But that isolation was part of the old pattern, not the new direction I was building. "Sure, lead the way." Callahan's turned out to be a modern pub with dark wood fixtures and muted lighting, comfortable without being too loud for conversation. Vanessa, Marcus, and 2 other Vanguard employees I'd met briefly that morning were already seated at a corner table when we arrived. "First round's on me," Marcus announced. "What'll you have, Parker?" "Bourbon. Neat, thanks." As drinks arrived and conversation flowed, I found myself gradually relaxing into the casual interaction. These people shared a common language of security protocols, risk assessment, and protection strategies, familiar territory wrapped in civilian context. "So how'd you connect with James?" Vanessa asked between sips of her martini. "We served together years ago, lost touch when he was medically discharged, reconnected recently by chance." "Military connections run deep here," Marcus added. "I was Navy, Sophia was Air Force intelligence, James obviously Army like you. Vanguard's practically a veterans program with better pay." "And fewer people shooting at us," Vanessa quipped, raising her glass. "Usually, anyway." Their easy camaraderie reminded me of the bonds formed in military units, the shorthand understanding, the shared experiences that needed no explanation. It wasn't the same, couldn't be, but it echoed that essential connection in ways I hadn't expected to find in the civilian world. As the evening progressed, the conversation shifted from work to more personal territory, hometowns, career paths, family situations. I kept my answers about Emma vague, sharing only that I was finalizing a divorce. The group seemed to sense my reticence and didn't press for details, something I appreciated deeply. Around 8, I made my excuses, wanting to review the Mercer materials once more before tomorrow's meeting. As I stood to leave, Vanessa caught my eye. "This transition, civilian life after service, it gets easier," she said quietly. "Not all at once, but day by day until suddenly you realize you're not transitioning anymore. You've just arrived." Her insight struck a chord, looking forward to that moment. "You'll get there," she assured me, "sooner than you think." Driving back to Mike's house, I found myself reflecting on the day's subtle but significant shifts. The easy acceptance from the Vanguard team, the familiar rhythms of security planning now applied to new contexts, the sense of purpose that had been absent for so long, all combined to create a growing certainty that this path forward was right. Mike was still on shift at the fire department, and Jana was working late at the bank, leaving the house quiet when I arrived. The solitude felt different than before, contemplative rather than isolating. I changed into more comfortable clothes, then spread the Mercer files across the guest room desk to review once more before tomorrow's meeting. As I worked, my phone rang with an unknown number. Normally I would have let it go to voicemail, wary of another contact attempt from Emma. Despite the court order, something prompted me to answer. "Daniel Parker. Mr. Parker, this is Catherine Mercer, Alexander's wife." Her voice was clear, professional, the neurosurgeon, not just the CEO's spouse. "I hope I'm not disturbing you." "Not at all, Doctor." "Mercer, what can I do for you?" "Alex shared your security assessment with me. I was impressed by your attention to our children's emotional well-being throughout the proposed measures." The comment caught me off guard. That's a fundamental part of effective security for families. Physical protection means little if it creates psychological harm. Precisely why I'm calling. Our son Max, he's 10, has some anxiety issues. I'm concerned about how he'll process these new security protocols. Her directness was refreshing. "I understand completely. Would it help if I spoke with him separately tomorrow, explain things in age-appropriate terms? Sometimes security feels less frightening when you understand it." "That's exactly what I was hoping you might suggest." The relief in her voice was palpable. Max responds well to clear, honest explanations, especially from people he perceives as capable. I'd be happy to take that approach. I have some experience helping children understand difficult situations without creating unnecessary fear. Though I hadn't worked with children professionally, I'd helped many fellow soldiers explain deployments and security measures to their kids over the years. The principles were the same: honesty without alarm, explanation without overwhelming detail. "Thank you, Mr. Parker. That eases my mind considerably." She paused. "May I ask a personal question?" "Of course." "Do you have children yourself? You seem to understand their perspective intuitively." The question stung unexpectedly. Emma and I had planned to start a family after my last deployment, one of many futures that would never materialize. "No. Children," I answered simply. "But I've worked with many families over the years." If Dr. Mercer noted any hesitation in my response, she didn't comment on it. "Well, you have a natural understanding. We'll see you tomorrow at 9, then. Looking forward to it." After hanging up, I sat back, Catherine Mercer's question lingering in my thoughts. Children had always been part of the future I'd imagined. Someday, when deployments were less frequent, when Emma and I had more stability. Now that future had evaporated completely, another loss among many. Yet the call had also highlighted something unexpected, skills and insights I possessed that translated to this new context in ways I hadn't anticipated. My military experience had taught me more than tactical operations and security protocols. It had shown me how to communicate difficult concepts, how to provide security without creating fear, how to help others navigate uncertainty. I returned to the Mercer files with renewed focus, adding notes about approaching security discussions with the children separately, tailoring the explanation to their specific developmental stages. By the time I finished, it was nearly midnight, but the plan felt complete in a way it hadn't before, addressing not just physical security but emotional security as well. As I prepared for bed, my phone buzzed with an email notification from Thomas. The subject line jolted me fully awake. Urgent issue with house possession. I opened it immediately. Daniel, Emma's lawyer, contacted me this evening with allegations that there are significant personal items belonging to Emma still in the house that weren't included in the divorce inventory. She's requesting additional time to remove these items, potentially extending her access to the property through next week. I believe this is a delay tactic, but we need to address it promptly. Please call first thing tomorrow. The email sent a surge of frustration through me. After everything, the clear settlement terms, the court orders, the formal timelines, Emma was still attempting to maintain control, to extend her connection to me through the property. I composed a quick reply. We'll call at 7:30 a.m. I have a complete inventory of all items in the house as of my last visit. Anything not on that list was removed by Emma without permission. I am unwilling to extend her access beyond the agreed timeline. Setting my phone aside, I took a deep breath, forcing the frustration back. This was exactly the kind of manipulation Williams had warned me about, Emma trying to maintain leverage however she could. The difference now was that I recognized it clearly and could respond from that awareness rather than emotion. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, the Mercer family meeting, potentially this new complication with the house, the Peterson client introduction. But for the first time in months, I felt equipped to handle whatever came, not just reacting to circumstances, but actively shaping my response and direction. The next morning, I called Thomas at precisely 7:30, outlining my position on Emma's latest maneuver. I agree this appears to be a delay tactic, Thomas said, after hearing me out. The settlement agreement clearly stated she had until this Friday to remove all personal belongings. We've been more than accommodating. What's our best response? I've already requested a formal inventory of these supposedly missing items. Once we receive that, we can compare it against the documentation we submitted during the divorce proceedings and the photos you took last week. The methodical approach appealed to my strategic mindset. And if the items she claims are missing aren't on our inventory, then she'll need to provide proof they were in the house after the divorce filing. Without that, her claim has no standing. After hanging up, I pushed the house situation firmly aside, focusing instead on the day ahead. The Mercer family meeting required my full attention, not divided focus. I arrived at Vanguard's office by 8:15, allowing time to review my presentation materials once more before heading to the Mercer home with Vanessa. She met me in the lobby, equipment bags in hand. "Ready for family day?" she asked with a knowing smile. Always interesting seeing how different family members respond to security protocols. "Got a special plan for their 10-year-old, I explained, sharing my conversation with Dr. Mercer. Vanessa nodded approvingly. Smart approach. Kids are often the wild card in family security. They follow routines, talk to strangers, share information freely, all the things we tell adults not to do. The drive to the Mercer's Broadmoor estate took about 20 minutes. The neighborhood itself provided the first layer of security, gated community, private security patrols, properties set well back from the road. But these measures created a false sense of safety that often led to complacency in personal security practices. Alexander Mercer greeted us at the door himself rather than sending household staff, a detail that spoke to how seriously he took this meeting. "Daniel, good to see you again, and you must be Vanessa. Please come in." The Mercer home was impressive, without being ostentatious. Modern architecture with clean lines, large windows overlooking the mountains, tasteful furnishings that suggested wealth without flaunting it. Catherine Mercer joined us in the foyer, her professional demeanor softened by the casual weekend attire. "Mr. Parker, thank you again for accommodating our discussion last night. Please, call me Daniel." I shook her hand, noting the firm, confident grip of someone used to commanding operating rooms. And it was no accommodation. Security is always more effective when tailored to the specific needs of each family member. Alexander led us to a sunlit living room where two children waited, a teenage girl with her father's sharp features and a younger boy who fidgeted nervously with the hem of his shirt. "These are our children, Abigail and Max." I approached them directly, shaking hands with each. "I'm Daniel. My job is to help keep your family safe without making your lives weird or difficult." The direct approach earned a small smile from Abigail and a curious look from Max, whose nervous fidgeting paused momentarily. "Are you like a bodyguard?" Max asked bluntly. "Not exactly." I sat in a chair across from them, consciously keeping my body language open and unthreatening. "Think of me more like a safety consultant. I help identify potential problems before they happen and create plans to avoid them." Catherine touched my shoulder lightly. "Would you like to speak with Max separately first, as we discussed? If that works for everyone." I looked directly at Max. "Would you mind showing me your favorite spot in the house? Sometimes the best security insights come from the people who live there every day." The approach worked, giving the boy agency rather than imposing adult concerns upon him. Max led me to a window seat in the library overlooking the backyard. Clearly, his reading nook based on the stack of adventure books nearby. "Great spot," I commented, genuinely impressed with the tactical advantages of the location. Good visibility, multiple exit routes, partially concealed from outside view. "You can see everything from here." Max nodded, some of his nervousness fading. "I like watching the birds at the feeder, and I can see when Dad comes home." For the next 15 minutes, I explained security concepts in terms of Max's favorite adventure books, creating home-base protocols, establishing check-in procedures as mission reports, presenting situational awareness as being the hero of your own story. With each explanation, I watched his anxiety visibly decrease, replaced by understanding and even excitement about participating in his family's security. By the time we rejoined the others, Max was explaining to his mother how he would help maintain their security protocols, a complete transformation from the anxious child I'd first encountered. The remainder of the meeting proceeded smoothly, with each family member engaging with the security plans from their own perspective. Abigail was primarily concerned with maintaining normal social activities with friends. Catherine focused on hospital schedules and how security would accommodate emergency calls. Alexander's priorities centered on business travel and public appearances. Vanessa conducted her technical assessment simultaneously, checking sightlines, entry points, and existing security systems. By noon, we had a comprehensive understanding of the family's needs and a clear implementation plan. "This was far more thorough than I expected," Alexander commented as we prepared to leave. "And far less intrusive." "That's our approach," I explained, "security that protects without disrupting." Catherine walked us to the door, Max beside her. The boy tugged at my sleeve as I was leaving. "Mr. Daniel, will you be the one checking on us, or someone else?" The simple question carried weight beyond its words. Trust beginning to form, the importance of consistency in security relationships, especially with children. "I'll be your primary contact," I assured him. "You'll see me regularly, and you have my number for questions any time." His relief was evident, a small nod acknowledging the promise. As Vanessa and I drove back toward downtown for our afternoon meeting with the Petersons, she glanced at me approvingly. You have a way with kids. Not everyone in our line of work manages that. They respond to honesty and respect. Most adults talk down to children about security, either hiding information or overloading them with frightening scenarios. True. She navigated through traffic with practiced ease. So transition from military to civilian life. How's it feeling so far? The question prompted reflection. 2 days into this new role, the sense of purpose I'd found was undeniable. Better than expected, different challenges, but familiar principles. The hardest part for me was civilian workplace politics, Vanessa admitted. In the service, chain of command is clear. Here, relationships matter more than rank. I'm noticing that. The observation connected to what had gone wrong with Emma. I'd maintained military compartmentalization in our marriage, keeping my professional concerns separate, not recognizing how much she needed that connection. You'll adapt, Vanessa said confidently. You already are. As we approached downtown, my phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. Emma's lawyer provided list of allegedly missing items. Nothing matches our inventory. Proceeding with Friday possession. Transfer as planned. Call when you can for details. Another hurdle cleared, another step forward on this new path. I texted back a quick acknowledgement, then refocused on the upcoming meeting. The past was resolving itself, piece by piece, allowing the future to take shape with increasing clarity. Ready for the Petersons? Vanessa asked as we parked. I straightened my tie, a gesture that still felt unfamiliar but increasingly natural. Absolutely. And I was ready, not just for this meeting, but for whatever came next. The new direction was becoming clearer with each step, illuminated not by what I was leaving behind, but by what lay ahead. The Peterson meeting went even better than expected. Harold Peterson, CEO of a regional banking chain, and his wife, Diane, signed a comprehensive security contract before we even left their downtown penthouse. James was ecstatic, Vanessa impressed, and I felt a growing confidence in my ability to translate military expertise into civilian protection. Thursday morning brought a text from Thomas as I was preparing for work. Emma made another attempt to delay. Judge denied it. Sheriff confirmed for tomorrow 9 a.m. house walkthrough and possession transfer. I set my phone down slowly, absorbing the news. These desperate maneuvers confirmed what I'd gradually come to understand. Emma hadn't expected consequences. She'd believed her affair would either remain undiscovered or that I would fight to keep her, despite her betrayal. When neither happened, she'd been left scrambling to regain control through increasingly transparent tactics. "Everything okay?" Mike asked, noting my expression as he entered the kitchen. Emma tried for another delay. Judge shut it down. Mike poured himself coffee. Not surprising. She's running out of options. "Tomorrow it ends." I said it with finality, already looking beyond the house transfer to the realtor meeting scheduled for the afternoon. "What time's the sheriff?" "Coming?" 9. "Should be quick. Verification that she's out, confirmation of property condition, formal transfer of possession." Mike nodded. "Want company? I'm off duty tomorrow." The offer wasn't surprising, but my response was, "I appreciate it, but I think I should handle this myself. Last step in putting it behind me." Mike studied me over his coffee mug. "Look at you, all grown up and facing your problems head on." His teasing tone softened the observation. "You sure?" "I'm sure," and I was. This final confrontation with the remnants of my marriage felt like something I needed to face alone, not out of stubbornness, but as a conscious choice to close this chapter on my own terms. "Fair enough. I'll have celebratory beers ready when you get back." Mike checked his watch. "Better head out if you want to beat traffic." The drive to Vanguard's office gave me time to mentally shift from divorce proceedings to professional responsibilities. Today's schedule included finalizing the Mercer Security Implementation Plan, and an initial assessment for the Petersons. The rhythm of these tasks, analyze, plan, implement, assess, provided a comfortable framework that kept my thoughts anchored in the present, rather than dwelling on tomorrow's house transfer. James met me at the elevator with unexpected news. We need to push the Mercer implementation forward. Alexander received another message last night, more specific, more concerning. The shift in timeline immediately engaged my tactical thinking. What was the nature of the message? Email, referencing his children's school schedules and routes. Specifically mentioned locations his daughter visits after school. I frowned. Targeting information about children crossed a significant threshold. Forward me the email. I'll call Mercer directly and adjust our timeline. We should start physical security measures today, not next week. No, already pulled Vanessa and Marcus in. They're prepping equipment now. The urgency of the situation provided welcome focus. Within an hour, we developed a revised implementation plan that prioritized immediate protection for the children, while accelerating the broader security measures for the entire family. I called Alexander Mercer directly, outlining our accelerated approach. I appreciate the quick response, he said, concern evident in his voice. Catherine's trying to maintain normalcy for the kids, but this latest message has us both worried. Nah, we'll have protective details in place by the time school lets out today, I assured him. The children won't even notice our presence unless necessary. Thank you, Daniel. Your calm approach is exactly what we need right now. After hanging up, I coordinated with Vanessa to arrange immediate protection details for Abigail and Max, drawing on Vanguard's network of carefully vetted security professionals. By noon, we had surveillance in place near both children's schools, with protective personnel prepared to shadow them discreetly through afternoon activities. James stopped by my office as I finalized the arrangements. Impressive response time. You've got this operating like a military precision team already. Just applying the basics, identify threat, deploy appropriate resources, maintain communication. Don't downplay it, James countered. 3 days on the job, and you're already handling our highest-profile client crisis with complete confidence. The transition from military to civilian security seems pretty seamless from where I'm standing. His observation gave me pause. The transition did feel increasingly natural, applying tactical and strategic thinking to new contexts, leading teams with clear objectives, anticipating threats, and developing countermeasures. The same core strengths that had defined my military career were finding expression in this new role. It helps having a clear mission, I acknowledged, and good people to work with. Speaking of which, James handed me a file folder. HR. Forms, benefits enrollment, company policies. Make it official when you get a chance. The folder represented another step away from military service towards civilian professional identity. I'll review these tonight. The remainder of the day passed in focused coordination of the Mercer security implementation. I personally visited both children's schools, establishing communication protocols with administrative staff and security personnel without raising undue alarm. Vanessa coordinated the installation of enhanced monitoring systems at the Mercer residence, while Marcus conducted a comprehensive sweep for electronic surveillance devices. By 6 that evening, when I finally left the office, the initial phase of our accelerated security plan was fully implemented. Both children were home safely, the house had been secured, and monitoring protocols were in place. The swift, effective response had further cemented the Mercer's confidence in Vanguard, generally and me specifically. As I drove back to Mike's house, mentally reviewing the day's operations, I realized I hadn't thought about Emma or the house transfer for hours. The absorbing nature of the work had provided not just distraction, but genuine engagement. My focus, naturally drawn to meaningful challenges rather than dwelling on past betrayals. Mike was grilling on the back deck when I arrived, the scent of steaks filling the evening air. Jana sat nearby, glass of wine in hand, her workday attire exchanged. For casual comfort. "Perfect timing," Mike called as I stepped onto the deck. "Steaks are almost ready." "Smells amazing." I accepted the beer Jana offered, settling into a deck chair with a contented sigh. "Long day." "Good long or bad long?" she asked. "Good. Very good, actually. Had to implement emergency security protocols for a client. Everything went smoothly." Mike flipped the steaks with practiced precision. "Look at you, saving the day in a suit instead of camo. How's it feel?" The question prompted genuine reflection. Different, but satisfying. Same core mission, protecting people, just different context. "That's the key, isn't it?" Jana observed. "Finding work that connects to what matters to you, regardless of the setting." Her insight resonated deeply. The sense of purpose I'd found in military service hadn't disappeared. It had simply found new expression in civilian protection. Different uniform, different protocols, but the same fundamental drive to safeguard others. Over dinner, I shared more details about the Mercer situation, the accelerated security implementation, and the satisfaction of seeing immediate positive results. Mike and Jana listened attentively, offering observations from their own professional perspectives, Mike's emergency response experience and Jana's understanding of financial security concerns. "You sound happy," Jana noted as we cleared the dinner dishes. "More animated than I've seen you since you got back." "I think I am," I admitted, somewhat surprised by the realization. "The work feels right, important. That's no small thing," she said softly. "Finding meaningful work after a major life transition? Some people search for years." Her words lingered as I prepared for bed later that evening, reviewing the HR paperwork James had provided. The benefits package, retirement plan, professional development opportunities, all represented a future I hadn't envisioned 6 months ago, but now embraced with increasing certainty. Before sleep, I set 2 alarms for the morning. One early, enough to prepare mentally for the house transfer, the other a backup in case I somehow slept through the first. Tomorrow would mark the final resolution of my marriage to Emma, the complete severing of our legal and property connections. The thought brought neither satisfaction nor sorrow, just a calm readiness to complete this necessary step. Morning arrived with unexpected clarity. I woke before either alarm, completed my shoulder rehabilitation exercises, and dressed in casual but professional attire, jeans and a button-down rather than a suit. This wasn't a work meeting, but a personal obligation, the last one connecting me to a relationship that had once defined my future. Mike was already awake when I emerged from the guest room, coffee brewed and breakfast in progress. "Big day," he said, sliding a mug toward me. "You still sure you don't want backup?" "Positive, but thanks." I accepted the coffee gratefully. "Should be straightforward. Thomas will be there with the sheriff. Emma and her lawyer might show up, might not. Either way, it ends today." "Exactly." I ate a light breakfast, more out of necessity than appetite, then checked my phone for messages from Thomas. None yet, but it was still early. The house transfer was scheduled for 9, giving me plenty of time to drive across town and arrive composed. Mike headed out for his morning run with a final reassurance. "Call if you need anything. Otherwise, I'll see you after it's done." The drive to what had once been our home felt surreal. Spring had transformed the neighborhood since my return from deployment. Flowering trees now lined the streets, lawns had greened, gardens bloomed in front yards, the cycle of seasons continuing regardless of human drama. I arrived 15 minutes early, parking across the street to gather my thoughts before approaching the property. Thomas's car pulled up shortly after, followed by a marked sheriff's department vehicle. No sign of Emma or her lawyer yet. Thomas greeted me with a firm handshake. "Ready to finish this?" "More than ready." The sheriff's deputy, a professional woman in her 40s, reviewed the court order authorizing today's transfer of possession. "Pretty straightforward process," she explained. "We'll verify the property is vacant, document current condition, and formalize the transfer." "Has Ms. Parker indicated whether she'll attend?" "Her lawyer said she might," Thomas replied, "but it's not required." "No." As if summoned by the conversation, a sleek black BMW pulled up to the curb. Emma's lawyer emerged first, Diane Hargrove, the sharp-dressed woman from our settlement meeting. Emma exited the passenger side more slowly, her expression a carefully composed mask that didn't quite hide her emotions. "Thomas, Mr. Parker." Hargrove nodded professionally. "We're here to ensure all terms of the agreement are properly fulfilled." "Of course," Thomas responded with equal professionalism. "The sheriff will conduct the walkthrough. We can all observe." Emma hadn't looked directly at me yet, her attention fixed on the house as if seeing it for the first time, or the last. She'd changed her hair, I noticed absently, cut it shorter than she'd worn it during our marriage. The observation carried no emotional weight, just a neutral registering of difference. The deputy unlocked the front door, using the key Emma had surrendered to her lawyer yesterday. "I'll need everyone to remain together during the walkthrough, standard procedure." We entered as a group, the deputy leading, followed by Thomas and me, with Emma and her lawyer bringing up the rear. The house echoed with emptiness, furniture removed, walls bare of photographs, rooms stripped of personality. It felt less like a home than a shell, a structure awaiting new purpose. The deputy methodically checked each room, confirming vacancy and documenting condition with photographs. Thomas and Hargrove exchanged quiet observations about minor damage, nail holes in walls, scuff marks on floors, determining whether anything exceeded normal wear and tear. None did. I remained largely silent throughout, observing the process with detached interest. This house had once represented our future together, a place for family gatherings, future children, decades of shared life. Now it was just an asset, to be sold, its emotional significance dismantled, along with the physical remnants of our marriage. In the master bedroom, Emma finally spoke, her voice directed at me, though her eyes focused on the empty closet. "I left the built-in shelving we installed, figured it added value to the house." The neutral comment seemed to require a response. "Appreciate that. The realtor's coming this afternoon to discuss listing." "You're selling right away then?" "Not quite a question. Yes," she nodded slowly. "It's a good market right now." The strangely normal exchange continued as we moved through the remaining rooms. Brief, practical comments about the house itself, rather than what it had contained or represented. By the time we reached the kitchen, the final stop on our tour, the surreal conversation had established an unexpected rhythm of civility. "Everything appears to be in order," the deputy announced, reviewing her documentation. "Property is vacant and in acceptable condition. I'll need signatures from both parties confirming the transfer of possession." We gathered around the kitchen island, the one piece of furniture remaining too large to move without disassembly, as the deputy prepared the necessary forms. Emma signed first, her hand hesitating slightly before completing her signature. I signed next, the action feeling oddly ceremonial, like the closing of an official record. "That completes the formal transfer," the deputy stated. "Mr. Parker, the property is now solely in your possession according to the court order." She handed me a copy of the completed paperwork. "Ms. Parker, as stipulated in the order, you no longer have legal access to this property without the owner's explicit permission." Emma nodded her understanding, still avoiding direct eye contact with me. Her lawyer placed a hand lightly on her arm, a subtle indication that they should leave. As they turned toward the door, Emma paused, finally meeting my gaze. "I did love you, Daniel, for whatever that's worth now." The statement hung in the air between us, neither accusation nor apology, simply a fact she seemed to need to express. I considered possible responses: anger, dismissal, indifference. None felt right for this final moment. "I know," I said. "Finally. I loved you, too. We just couldn't be what each other needed." Something shifted in her expression. A release of tension, perhaps, or acknowledgement of a truth we'd both avoided. She nodded once, then followed her lawyer out the door. Without looking back, Thomas waited until their car pulled away before speaking. "You okay?" "Yeah." And surprisingly, I was. The encounter had lacked the confrontational edge I'd half expected. Instead, it had provided a kind of closure I hadn't realized I needed. Not reconciliation or forgiveness, necessarily, but recognition of the reality we now occupied. Separate lives, separate futures. "The settlement payment will be transferred to her account today, as agreed," Thomas confirmed. "That concludes all obligations under the divorce decree. You're officially free and clear." Free and clear. The legal terminology felt appropriate in ways beyond property transfer. After months of emotional turmoil, legal negotiations, and strategic maneuvering, the complicated entanglement of marriage, betrayal, and divorce had resolved into simple, clean separation. "What time is the realtor coming?" Thomas asked as we walked toward our cars. 2 o'clock, giving me time to clean up a bit first. "Need help with that? I can recommend a service." I shook my head. "I'll handle it." Good opportunity for closure. Thomas didn't argue, recognizing the symbolic importance of this final task. "Call if you need anything else. Otherwise, congratulations on completing this difficult process with dignity." After Thomas left, I returned to the empty house alone, the silence no longer oppressive but expectant, a blank canvas awaiting new purpose. I spent the next few hours cleaning methodically, erasing lingering evidence of the life that had once filled these rooms. With each swipe of the cloth, each sweep of the broom, I felt lighter, my connection to this space transforming from emotional to practical. By the time Lisa Chen, the realtor Mike had recommended, arrived promptly at 2, the house gleamed with possibility rather than echoing with absence. "Beautiful property," she commented as I gave her the tour. "Great location, good bones, updated kitchen. Should move quickly in this market." We discussed listing price, marketing strategy, and timeline while walking through each room. Lisa's professional assessment reinforced what I already knew. This house represented a valuable asset, one that could fund whatever came next. "How soon can we list?" I asked as we concluded the tour. "I can have the photographer here tomorrow, listing active by Monday. Any particular urgency on your end?" I considered the question. A month ago, I might have pushed for the fastest possible sale, eager to sever all connections to my life with Emma. Now, with my professional transition progressing smoothly and a new sense of direction emerging, the urgency had faded. Monday works fine. I want to do this right, get the best possible price. "Smart approach," Lisa approved. "The spring market is strong. Waiting for professional photos and proper staging will likely net you an additional 20 to 30,000. As she prepared the listing agreement, my phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. "Situation at Mercer Residence. Need you ASAP." The message sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. "I need to handle something urgent," I told Lisa. "Can we wrap this up quickly?" She efficiently condensed her remaining questions, had me sign the necessary paperwork, and promised to coordinate the photographer's visit directly with me tomorrow. Within 10 minutes, I was in my car, calling Vanessa while navigating toward the Broadmoor area. "What's the situation?" I asked when she answered. "Max didn't arrive at his piano lesson after school. Catherine called Alexander, who contacted us. We're implementing missing child protocols now." My mind immediately shifted to tactical response mode. Location of last confirmed sighting. School dismissal, 3:15 p.m. Our surveillance team observed him entering a blue sedan they believed was driven by the family's regular nanny. Verification just came through. Nanny called in sick today. Vehicle and driver were unauthorized. Have you notified police? Alexander insisted on waiting for your assessment first. He's concerned about media attention if police are involved immediately. I've already advised against delay, but he's waiting for your recommendation. Tell him I'm authorizing immediate police notification. This is textbook child abduction. Scenario: I'm 15 minutes out. Copy that. The drive to the Mercer residence became a focused blur, my military training automatically engaging emergency response protocols, assess available information, identify immediate action items, develop contingency plans. The personal milestone I just completed faded completely from consciousness, replaced by the urgent security situation unfolding. I arrived to find Vanessa coordinating with local police in the Mercer's living room. Catherine sat rigidly on the sofa, phone clutched in her hand, while Alexander paced near the windows. "Daniel," Catherine's voice broke slightly as she saw me. "Thank you for coming so quickly." "What's our current status?" I asked Vanessa directly. "Police have issued an Amber Alert with vehicle description and Max's information. Traffic cameras identified the blue sedan heading east on Interstate 25 approximately 30 minutes ago. Alexander's received no communication from potential abductors yet." The lack of ransom demand was concerning, suggesting either this wasn't financially motivated or the perpetrators had other initial objectives before making contact. "We need to establish a command center here," I said decisively. "Secure communications, call monitoring, social media surveillance." "Where's Abigail?" "Upstairs with her grandmother," Catherine answered. "We didn't want her to hear everything." "Good. Keep her insulated from the details for now, but maintain close supervision. Vanessa, coordinate with Marcus to get technical. Monitoring equipment here immediately. I need to speak with the officers handling the investigation." The police lieutenant provided a quick briefing. Highway patrol units were searching for the vehicle, an unmarked detective unit was en route to interview school personnel, and forensic specialists were reviewing surveillance footage from nearby businesses. "Any connection to the threatening messages Mr. Mercer received recently?" the lieutenant asked. "Almost certainly," I confirmed. "The timing and targeting suggest professional surveillance preceding the abduction. These weren't random threats." Alexander joined our conversation, his CEO composure cracking under paternal fear. "What do they want? Why haven't they contacted us yet?" "Standard procedure in organized abductions is to create a period of uncertainty and fear before making demands," I explained carefully. "It's a psychological tactic to increase your willingness to comply quickly when they do make contact. So we just wait." The anguish in his voice was palpable. "We prepare," I corrected. "Every system possible to trace calls, record communications, triangulate locations. When they contact you, and they will, we'll be ready to gather actionable intelligence." Over the next hour, Marcus arrived with specialized equipment, transforming the Mercer's home office into a technical monitoring station. Police established perimeter security around the property, while Vanessa coordinated with school officials to review all security footage from the afternoon. Throughout the escalating response, I maintained a calm, focused demeanor that seemed to stabilize both the Mercers and the various professionals responding to the crisis. The same decisiveness that had served me in combat now provided essential leadership in this civilian emergency. At precisely 5:47 p.m., Alexander's private cell phone rang with an unknown number. The room fell silent as Marcus activated tracing protocols and recording equipment. "Put it on speaker," I instructed quietly. Answer naturally, but keep them talking as long as possible. Alexander nodded, visibly steeling himself before answering. This is Alexander Mercer. Mr. Mercer. The voice on the speaker was male, deliberately disguised through electronic distortion. I believe we have something that belongs to you. Let me speak to my son, Alexander demanded, his voice steadier than I had expected. All in good time. First, we need to establish some ground rules. No police involvement, no FBI, no security consultants. Just you, following our instructions. Precisely. I made eye contact with Alexander, nodding encouragingly. He was doing well keeping the caller engaged. How do I know Max is safe? I need proof before discussing anything else. A brief pause, then. Check your email in 2 minutes. After you've seen our proof, call this number back. Come alone to the phone. Any detection of others listening, any trace attempts, any deviation from our instructions, you won't see your son again. The call ended abruptly. Marcus immediately began analyzing the data collected during the brief conversation, while I turned to Alexander. You did perfectly. When they send proof of life, verify it's recent. Look for current clothing, today's. Details? When you call back, keep asking questions that require specific answers about Max. The more they talk, the more information we gather. Alexander nodded grimly. And if they detect your involvement? They won't, I assured him. We'll maintain the appearance of compliance while gathering everything needed to locate Max safely. Catherine joined us, her medical training evident, in her composed but alert demeanor. What do they typically demand in situations like this? Usually money, I explained honestly. Sometimes corporate information or access, occasionally political statements or actions. Whatever they ask for, our priority remains the same. Confirm Max's safety, gather intelligence, coordinate recovery. The tension in the room ratcheted higher as we waited for the promised email. When it arrived, Alexander opened it with trembling hands. The attached photo showed Max seated in what appeared to be a warehouse or industrial space, holding today's a newspaper. He looked frightened but unharmed. That's today's clothes, Catherine confirmed, examining the image closely. He's wearing the dinosaur socks I put out this morning. I nodded to Alexander. Call them back now. Remember, keep them talking. Ask specific questions about Max. As Alexander made the call, I stepped aside with the police lieutenant, speaking quietly. We need to isolate the background elements in that photo. Windows, equipment, any identifying features of the location. Forensics is already on it, he confirmed. We're also tracing the email origin, though it's likely routed through multiple servers. The second call lasted longer, nearly 4 minutes of specific demands and instructions. The abductors wanted $5 million in cryptocurrency, transferred to an anonymous wallet within 24 hours. They promised to release Max, at a location to be disclosed after confirming the transfer. When Alexander hung up, I immediately shifted to response planning. Marcus will set up a cryptocurrency transfer that appears legitimate, but contains traceable elements. Meanwhile, we'll analyze every piece of data from the communication and photo to narrow down potential locations. Catherine gripped her husband's hand. Will this work? Will we get him back? I met her gaze directly, balancing honesty with necessary hope. Yes. We have multiple advantages they don't realize. Technical expertise they're not accounting for, law enforcement resources they can't detect, and most importantly, they don't know about me. What difference does that make? Alexander asked. Because I've handled situations like this before, in contexts far more dangerous than Colorado Springs. They're expecting panicked parents and cautious police. They're not expecting someone with combat extraction experience coordinating the response. The confidence in my statement wasn't bravado, but honest assessment. The skills I'd developed locating high-value targets in hostile territory were directly applicable to this situation. The methodical intelligence gathering, pattern analysis, and strategic response planning that had defined my military operations now focused with laser precision on bringing Max home safely. As the command center operations intensified around us, I felt a strange clarity emerge. The same focused determination that had carried me through the most challenging combat situations. The divorce finalizing that morning, the house transfer, the realtor meeting, all faded to insignificance compared to the mission now before me. This was what I had trained for, what my years of service had prepared me to handle. Different context, different stakes, but the same fundamental purpose, protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. In this moment of crisis, I found my military identity and civilian role aligning perfectly, creating something stronger and more effective than either alone could have been. I looked at the fear in Catherine and Alexander's eyes, the determined professionalism of Vanessa and Marcus, the coordinated efforts of the police team. Then I made a silent promise, one I fully intended to keep. Max would come home safely, whatever it took. The next 12 hours unfolded with tactical precision. While Marcus tracked the cryptocurrency wallet and created a traceable transfer system, I worked with the police forensics team to analyze every pixel of the photo showing Max. 3 subtle details caught my attention. Distinctive fluorescent, lighting fixtures visible in the ceiling, a partial logo reflected in a puddle on the concrete floor, and the angle of afternoon sunlight through a distant window. Cross-reference abandoned industrial properties within 50 miles that face west, I instructed the police analysts. Focus on buildings formerly owned by Westridge Manufacturing based on that partial logo. By 3 a.m., we had narrowed the potential locations to 4 abandoned warehouses east of the city. Satellite imagery eliminated one immediately due to a collapsed roof not visible in Max's photo. The remaining 3 became our focus. We need quiet surveillance on all 3 locations, I told the police lieutenant. No marked vehicles, no helicopters, nothing that indicates law enforcement presence. Catherine and Alexander had finally been convinced to rest, though neither was truly sleeping. Vanessa maintained security at the residence while I coordinated the rescue planning from the command center we'd established. At 4:17 a.m., one of the surveillance teams reported movement at the 3rd warehouse, a blue sedan matching the description of the vehicle used in the abduction arriving and departing after approximately 10 minutes. That's our confirmation, I said decisively. They're rotating shifts watching the boy. The next rotation gives us our window. The police tactical team wanted to move immediately, but I counseled strategic patience. We need to catch them during a handover when Max is likely with at least 2 kidnappers. That gives us the best chance of identifying the entire network. By dawn, we had a complete operational plan. Police tactical teams would move into position near all access points, but remain hidden. When surveillance confirmed the next shift, change vehicle approaching, we would wait until both groups were inside, then execute a coordinated entry from all points simultaneously. I should be there, Alexander insisted when briefed on the plan. That puts Max at greater risk, I explained gently but firmly. The kidnappers are expecting you to follow their instructions, not participate in a rescue. Your presence could escalate the situation. Reluctantly, he agreed to remain at home with Catherine, Vanessa keeping them secured while Marcus maintained technical communications with our operation. At 8:39 a.m., surveillance reported another vehicle approaching. The warehouse, not the blue sedan, but a dark SUV. This is it, I told the tactical commander. They're bringing in additional personnel, likely preparing to move locations after receiving the ransom. We watched through remote cameras as 3 men exited the SUV and entered the warehouse through a side door. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. the entire group now contained in one location before they'd had time to prepare for departure. "All teams in position," came the confirmation through my tactical earpiece. "Execute on my mark," I responded, watching the warehouse entrance for any signs of additional participants. 3, 2, 1, execute. The police tactical teams moved with synchronized precision, breaching all entrances simultaneously. I followed the primary entry team, my military experience keeping me alert for threats the officers might miss. The warehouse erupted in shouted commands, flashbangs disorienting the kidnappers before they could react. In the center of the main floor, Max sat on a folding chair, frightened but unharmed. One kidnapper reached for a weapon, but stopped when he realized he was surrounded by tactical officers. Within 90 seconds, all 5 perpetrators were secured, and I was kneeling beside Max. "Hey, buddy," I said gently. "I'm Daniel, a friend of your parents. We're here to take you home." His eyes widened in recognition. "Mr. Daniel from the security meeting? Did you come with all these police officers?" "I sure did. Your mom and dad sent me to find you." I examined him quickly for injuries, finding only minor bruises. "Are you hurt anywhere?" He shook his head. "They didn't hurt me, just scared me." "You were very brave," I told him sincerely. "And now the adventure is over. Let's call your parents." The joy and relief in Catherine and Alexander's voices when they heard Max on the phone transcended words. The police medical team cleared Max for immediate transport home rather than hospital evaluation, and I accompanied him in the unmarked police vehicle, maintaining security protocols until he was safely reunited with his family. The scene at the Mercer home, Max running into his parents' arms, Abigail joining the embrace, tears and laughter mingling in profound relief, struck something deep within me. This was what truly mattered. Not houses or possessions or even professional accolades, but the sacred connections between people who loved each other. Alexander approached me as the family embrace continued, emotion overcoming his usual corporate composure. "I don't have words adequate to thank you," he said, gripping my hand. "You brought our son home." "It was a team effort," I responded, truthfully. "Police, Vanguard, everyone worked together." "But you led it," Catherine said, joining us with Max still clutched to her side. "Your confidence, your experience, it made all the difference." Later that afternoon, after police debriefings and medical checkups confirmed Max was truly unharmed, James arrived at the Mercer residence. The kidnappers had been identified as members of an organized crime group targeting wealthy executives, the same group likely responsible for the threatening messages that had prompted the Mercers to hire Vanguard initially. "This is beyond exceptional work," James told me privately as we observed the reunited family from a respectful distance. "You coordinated a multi-agency response, identified the location through detail analysis, and executed a perfect recovery operation in 3 days on the job." The praise registered but felt secondary to the simple satisfaction of seeing Max safe with his family. Right place, right time, right training. "More than that," James insisted. "This is who you are, Daniel. You were built for this work." His words resonated with unexpected depth. Throughout the military, through my marriage and its dissolution, through injury and recovery, some essential core of identity had remained constant. A fundamental drive to protect, to serve something larger than myself. That purpose hadn't disappeared with my uniform, but had found new expression in civilian life. 2 days later, after ensuring the Mercers were secured with enhanced protocols and the investigation into the kidnapping ring had advanced significantly, I finally returned to Mike's house for more than a quick shower and change of clothes. "There he is," Mike announced as I walked through the door, "the hero of the hour." News of the kidnapping and rescue had made local headlines. though Vanguard's specific role had been minimized at the Mercer's request to protect their privacy. "Not a hero," I corrected, easing onto the couch with a tired sigh. "Just doing the job. A job you're apparently exceptionally good at," Jana remarked, bringing me a cold beer without asking. "James called Mike yesterday singing your praises. Said he's never seen anyone transition from military to civilian security so seamlessly." The simple acknowledgement warmed me more than I'd expected. It felt right, all of it. The analysis, the coordination, the operation, like everything I've trained for, found its proper application. "That's no small thing," Mike said, his expression serious beneath the casual tone. "Finding where you truly belong after service. Some guys search for years." Later that evening, as we sat on the back deck watching the sunset paint the mountains in stunning orange and pink hues, Mike broached the subject I'd been too busy to address. "Heard from the realtor. 3 offers on the house already, all over asking price." The house. In the intensity of the past few days, I'd nearly forgotten about finalizing the divorce and listing the property. That was fast. "Hot market. Lisa. Says one offer looks particularly good. No contingencies. Flexible closing timeline. Wanted to know if you'd like to review them tomorrow." I considered the question, feeling a strange detachment from what would have seemed monumentally important just days ago. "Yeah, I should probably handle that." Mike studied me with the perceptive gaze of someone who had known me through my best and worst moments. "Something's different since the Mercer kid. Perspective, I guess." I took a slow sip of beer, organizing thoughts I hadn't fully articulated even to myself. When I was in that warehouse finding Max, bringing him home, nothing else mattered. Not the house, not Emma, not my shoulder or the retirement paperwork or any of it, just doing what needed to be done. "That's called finding your purpose again," Mike said simply, "and it looks good on you." The next morning, I met with Lisa to review the offers on the house. As Mike had indicated, they were all strong, with one standing out in terms of price and flexibility. I signed the acceptance paperwork without the emotional weight I'd anticipated. It was simply a practical step forward, not a symbolic severing of the past. From there, I drove directly to Vanguard's office. A different energy greeted me as I stepped off the elevator. Nods of recognition, respectful acknowledgements, the subtle shift that comes when people have seen you perform under pressure. James met me at my office door. "The Petersons called. They've referred 3 of their executive friends already. The Mercers can't stop talking about you to their social circle. The kidnapping response has transformed our reputation overnight. Just doing what needed to be done." I repeated my refrain from yesterday, "which is exactly why I'd like to discuss your future here." James closed my office door. "We need to formalize your position. Executive Protection Specialist doesn't cover what you actually did this week. I'm thinking Director of Strategic Security Operations with a team reporting directly to you." The offer caught me off guard. "I've been here less than 2 weeks, James, and accomplished more than most people do in a year. This isn't charity or friendship, Daniel. It's recognizing exceptional talent and putting it where it belongs in the organization." Boom. As we discussed the details of the expanded role, salary, responsibilities, team structure, I felt the final pieces of my new life clicking into place. Not replacing what had come before, but building upon it, creating something that honored my military experience while opening new possibilities for the future. That evening, I called the realtor and instructed her to accept the best offer on the house. Within 30 minutes, the paperwork was signed electronically. Another chapter. Closed with quiet efficiency. I looked around Mike's guest room, which had sheltered me through the darkest period of my life, and realized it was time for the next step there as well. I should start looking for my own place, I told Mike and Jana over dinner. "You've been incredible, but I've imposed long enough." "No rush," Mike insisted. "We've enjoyed having you here." "I know, and I'm grateful. But it's time to build something that's mine." Jana nodded, understanding. "Any thoughts on where you'll look?" "Downtown, maybe. Close to the office. Something simple but mine." The conversation shifted to neighborhoods and property values, the practical details of establishing a new home. But beneath the casual discussion ran a deeper current of recognition. This wasn't just about finding an apartment or condo, it was about claiming space in the world that reflected who I was becoming, not who I had been. 3 months later, I stood in my new downtown loft, unpacking the last of my belongings. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of the mountains to the west and the city center below. The space was modern, open, uncluttered by unnecessary possessions or painful memories. My phone rang. Vanessa calling about a new client assessment. Director of Strategic Security Operations, now applied to a team of 6, with expanding contracts and growing reputation. The work remained challenging, meaningful, purposeful. Everything I'd found in military service, now expressed in civilian context. As I hung up, promising to review the assessment in the morning, my gaze fell on a framed photograph recently given to me by Catherine Mercer, Max at his piano recital, smiling broadly at the camera, the trauma of his kidnapping fading into the resilience of childhood. She'd written a simple message on the back, "Because of you, he can still smile like this." I placed the photo on my desk, a reminder of why this work mattered. The journey from that devastating moment of discovery in my former home to this peaceful evening in my new life hadn't been easy or straight. There had been pain, betrayal, loss, and uncertainty. But through it all, something essential had remained intact. My capacity to protect, to serve, to make a difference when it truly mattered. The divorce papers I'd filed before deployment had set in motion more than just the end of a marriage. They had unexpectedly opened the door to something I couldn't have imagined then, a life rebuilt not on resentment or revenge, but on purpose and possibility. Up next, you got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.